In this video, I'm going to be talking about the game between Chelsea and Liverpool in the FA Cup. To start with their formations, both teams lined up in a 4-3-3 that sort of morphed into a 4-2-3-1, with one of the three central midfielders pushing forward into a more attacking role. This was more obvious in Chelsea's formation. Ross Barkley would step up into more of a number 10 role, but on the right-hand side in the right half space, and Kovacic would drop in to form a double pivot with Gilmour in the middle. So they would form a bit of a lopsided triangle in the middle, which would leave a lot of space on the left-hand side that Pedro would step into and Alonso would overlap on the left-hand side. It also allows Giroud to step out into the left, more into the left. On the Liverpool side of the field, they were in their normal 4-3-3. The rotated side saw Minamino take Firmino's role, and he dropped in similar to how Firmino does. Curtis Jones on the left of the three central midfielders stepped a bit higher than Lallana on the right-hand side, so it formed a bit of a lopsided diamond in midfield. Origi and Mane then cut in and played more as two center forwards rather than wide forwards on the wings, with Robertson and Williams overlapping. So let's start with the way that Chelsea pressed. Their press allowed Liverpool to have the ball with their two center backs, Gomez and Van Dijk. Giroud would play off the two of them, only pressing if there was a good opportunity to do so. In the first half, Ross Barkley and Kovacic alternated stepping out of the midfield line in order to block Fabinho from receiving the ball. So you can see here, Barkley has stepped out because the ball is on his side, but if the pass went to Joe Gomez on the other side and Fabinho shifted across, Kovacic would then step out to help. If a pass broke through into the midfield, Chelsea then formed a mid-block with a 4-5-1 shape. So their midfielders would drop in, Giroud would press Fabinho and allow any passes back to the center backs, and the rest of the midfield would form a line of five across the midfield. They kept it very compact in between the midfielders and defenders, which is where Curtis Jones was trying to operate the most, was in between here. So he didn't get a lot of service. Minamino similarly was trying to find space in between the lines, but neither of them could do so. Mane and Origi on the outsides cut in to try to be center forwards, but the pace of Rudiger and Zuma was enough to keep them at bay, although there were a few testy situations. So if we go to the Chelsea build-up now, Chelsea looked like they were committed to building out of the back somewhat, with Rudiger and Zuma splitting wide to the outsides of the 18, or just inside the 18 here, more like this on the 6. But what happened was Liverpool stepped up and pressured man-to-man to discourage building out of the back from goal kicks. So what we saw was Mane and Origi stepping from their wide positions to press the two center backs. Minamino then would drop in on normally Kovacic on this side, which then would allow Curtis Jones to step out of midfield here, we see in the rotation, to block the other half of the double pivot, which was Billy Gilmour. Chelsea almost never build out of the back and would opt to go long instead. But whenever they would build from the midfield, this shape turned into the 4-2-3-1 like I talked about at the beginning. Kovacic alongside Gilmour in a double pivot, and then Ross Barkley pushing higher up the field as a number 10 in the right half space. What this lopsided triangle allowed for was a lot of space in between the midfield line and defensive line of Liverpool on the left-hand side. So while Chelsea didn't have a lot of possession and build-up play, this allowed in transitional phases for Pedro to tuck into this space that would naturally be here and Alonso to come on the overlap. So if we look at the role of Barkley here in the first goal, Adrian tried to build out of the back, played out to the right. Williams then dropped it back to Gomez, and then Gomez tried to find Fabinho. Now here, Fabinho had pressure from Barkley, so he made a poor pass to this side of the field, and then Willian took it and hit a shot, and obviously Adrian made the mistake. But if we go back here, because Barkley is up higher, you see on this side, then Kovacic on the left-hand side, Fabinho was kind of surprised that Barkley was here to pressure him, so his loose touch led to a loose pass. So now we see the start of the second goal for Chelsea, where Van Dijk has just taken down a clearance and played a pass into Jones. Jones is then challenged by Pedro, and the ball pops up into the air for a contested header between Van Dijk and Giroud. And even though Fabinho seems to have good position here on Barkley, because Barkley is playing his more advanced role, when this ball pops over Fabinho's head, Barkley is there to capitalize, and the long run from Barkley then leads to a goal. Chelsea found a few moments of fortune, especially with Williams' first goal, and then on Barkley's second with the pop over Fabinho's head from the contest between Giroud and Van Dijk. But Liverpool struggled the whole game to find any space in between the lines and did not have the pace of Salah to stretch the back line, so Zuma and Rudiger were able to cope. After a couple injuries and substitutions in the second half, Chelsea allowed Barkley to take up the more attacking role and not really fall into the midfield line nearly as much. This led to their second goal and a lot more chances in the counter-attacking chances in the second half for Chelsea. Thanks for watching the video. Please leave any feedback in the comments.